مرحبا بكم مجددا.
Welcome back. We now meet in session 4, the fourth and the last session of the second and last day of the 2019 Knowledge Summit. In this session, with which we conclude today's proceedings, we will be talking about skills development in a fast-changing labor market. We have with us Dr. Faten Saliba, founder of Success & Co., Lauren Probst, PwC's Accelerator Network Global Leader, Simon Banks, partner and co-founder at Sustainable Recruitment Solutions, SRS. The session will be moderated by Dr. Khalid Al-Wazani, chairman of the Jordan Investment Commission. We welcome them all with us. The session will focus on reskilling, upskilling, and training displaced workers, promoting the next generation skills. I wish you a fruitful discussion. Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to this final session in the Knowledge Factory. When we talk about sustainability and improving livelihood of people, maybe this theme is among the most important because it touches onto the biggest segment in our society in the Arab world, the youth. The youth compose around 70% of the total population of the region. And I think that youth comprise of 100% of the needs of the fourth industrial revolution and foresight, because all the requirements of the fourth industrial revolution is mainly focused on innovation, entrepreneurship, contributing new things. And the youth are the most capable of providing all of that, especially that we have a saying for societies in general and for Arab societies particularly, those who do not advance will be extinct. There are a lot of jobs that we used to hear about in previous generations, and even for our generation no longer exist. The most important, or more importantly, recent reports, particularly the Future Jobs report, indicated clearly that between 2018 and 2022, there are 75 million jobs that will no longer exist in 2022. The report also indicated that 133 million jobs will be created and will rely mainly on development, innovation, and foresight. And this is the challenge that I would like to discuss with my panelists, mainly focusing on 2 points. First of all, we have a working force today that is not really enabled or qualified to cover 133 million new jobs, and therefore we fear that the current working force from now until 2022, so only 3 or 4 years from now, will be losing their jobs one after another. This is something dangerous not only for our Arab region but in general. The second point is that the youth who are between school and university age constitute 50% of the population of this region. Either we equip them with skills that are obsolete and therefore will be among the unemployed, or we equip them to be able among those who fill the 133 million new jobs as part of the fourth industrial revolution. I conclude by saying that the issue mainly in our Arab region is that in most education levels, we give certificates without giving skills or qualification. So we give certification but not qualification, while the labor market is not only looking for certification but also for qualification. It's useless for you to have a university degree if you are not otherwise qualified in languages and other skills. I have three excellent panelists that can contribute a lot with their knowledge, some of them in innovation and academics, and some of them come from research, while others work hands-on on issues related to skills, the use of skills, and employment solutions. Please welcome with me my three guests. And I would like to tell you that we'll not go beyond 4:20 as per the schedule. We are 10 minutes behind, but I will be very strict with my three speakers because I'm chairing this session, and I will not allow that we go beyond the time allowed to every speaker, so that we leave 20 minutes for the Q&A. If they were kind enough to respond, I'll be happy. Otherwise, I will use my prerogative to interrupt them. We start with the first speaker, Dr. Faten Saliba, who will be talking about her experience in academia and her founding of Success & Co. Dr. Faten, I did not receive the bios of my speakers, so Dr. Faten, kindly introduce yourself and do not exceed 10 minutes in your presentation, and this will be the time allocated to all my speakers.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Faten Saliba. I'm a visiting assistant professor in economics at the Lebanese American University. As an economist, I focus on policy evaluation. I rely on micro and macro data to empirically assess the effectiveness of existing regulations and looking at their labor market impact. I'm also the founder of Success & Co. It's a startup that aims to empower Arab youth by providing them technical tools, equipping them to engage in the fourth industrial revolution and help them attain higher level of education and join the labor market, help smoothen the transition between school and work. So before starting my presentation, I'm gonna play a very small game with you. I'm gonna read two small texts, and you'll have to identify whether this is written by a human or machine. So the first one, Apple's holiday earnings for 2014 were recorded shattering. The company earned an $18 billion profit on $74.6 billion in revenue. That profit was more than any company had ever earned in history. So that's the first text. The second one, Banner had a good game at the plate of Hamilton, for Hamilton, ace for Cheney. Banner went 2-3, drove in one and scored one run. Banner singled in the third inning and doubled in the fifth inning. So the first text, was it written by a human or by a machine? Human, raise your hand. Okay. And who say that that was written by a machine? Okay, and what about the second one? Was it written by a human? Okay, and was it written by a machine? Okay, so the correct answers, the first one, human, and the fourth one, the second one, a machine. Okay, guys, so it's a bit confusing, and this will show us how far we have arrived in terms of technology, and that's why humans are scared from automation, and they're scared of losing their jobs, and that's the objective of today's presentation, to be talking about this subject. Okay, so how can I?
We need the clicker here for the presentation. The clicker for the presentation, because she has a presentation here. Can you do that, please, for us?
So I think
You have the green one? خلاص,
okay.
We're good. We're good.
Yeah. So it has been described, the fourth industrial revolution, to be the fastest, most impactful, and most like the fastest, most impactful, and the widespread revolution among the previous ones. And we can take an example that the radio, for example, took around 50 years to reach took around 38 years to reach 50 million users, whereas WeChat, which was a Chinese application that was developed in 2011, it took only 1 year to reach 50 million users compared to the radio. Facebook reached 600 million users in just 5 years. The fourth industrial revolution has affected all our lives, all economic sectors, from manufacturing, healthcare, agriculture, business, finance, and it bridges between the physical, the biological, and the digital. And so far, we don't know the exact effect on the future of jobs and the future of work, or the skills and the occupations that will be really demanded in the future. What has happened that the third and the fourth industrial revolution has coincided together. The third industrial revolution had a hollowing out effect. So we have seen, because of the third industrial revolution, there has been a decrease in demand for the medium-skilled jobs and an increase in the high-skilled jobs, pushing further or enhancing further inequality between high and low-skilled jobs. And so far, we don't know the net effect of the fourth industrial revolution, if it's going to continue with this trend and further enhance inequality. When we think of the fourth industrial revolution, the first intelligence, the first word that crosses our mind is intelligence. And we think that these machines or these emerging technologies are so intelligent, more intelligent than human, and they will definitely replace us. Whereas these emerging technologies focus on computational space. They are very fast in terms of numbers and preciseness and algorithm. However, no technology can replace the entire brain of a human. Still, no matter how advanced these technologies are, at the end of the day, we're the one deciding the methodology. We're the one actually understanding or trying to give policymakers the real policies because of the imputation of these technology. We're the one who will analyze the data. So that's why there will be no technology replacing the entire human brain. It has been said, a World Economic the word, yes, like Future of Work report have mentioned that there will be 75 million jobs destroyed because of these emerging technologies. However, there will be 130 million jobs created. But in order to make sure that these displaced workers are properly integrated again in the labor market, we should have the intervention of stakeholders at all levels, at a government level, at a private sector level, and at an academic level. Okay, so yes, as I mentioned earlier, the fourth industrial revolution and its emerging technologies will be affecting all different sectors. So there's no specific sector that will be affected more than others, but the skills that will be mostly affected, or the jobs that will be mostly affected across all sectors, will be routine jobs, whether they are cognitive or manual. The routine jobs, the ones that are repetitive, these are the ones that will be easily automated, whereas what will stand in terms of automation are the non-routine jobs. Non-routine jobs will need 3 important skills. The cognitive skills, everything related to critical thinking, analytical thinking, problem solving. Soft skills, everything related to leadership skills, management, empathy, adaptability, negotiation skills, communication skills. So these are all skills that will stand in face of automation. And the third one, technological skills. So nowadays, whether we like it or not, as a young person who wants to enter the labor market, they have to merge between these 3 skills. So they don't have to be per se programmers, but at least they have to be trained in order to understand the coding or the programming language, so they can know the exact role of the machine and what the machine can tell us and what can do what the machine can does or cannot do. Okay. And so my last recommendation before I still have time, three minutes, okay. So at an academic level, for any young person who's entering the labor market, the talents that they will require is a combination of 4 C's: communication skills, creativity, coding, and confidence. If we have these 4 skills, this will equip any young person, whether they belong to the MENA region or outside the MENA region, to integrate in the labor market and face the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, so if I want to give some policy recommendation at the government level, the government should really understand what are the future of work, who are the people who are really vulnerable, and shed lights on certain policies and provide certain trainings for the vulnerable population that will be affected mostly by this fourth industrial revolution. And these will be the ones who have low-skilled training and medium-skilled training, and focusing also on the young generation and women per se. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Faten. Beautiful.
It has been a wonderful presentation. You have been committed to time, and you send a clear message. And it's possible that I would like to ask Dr. Faten. She will be thinking about it. I'm going to tell her, as long as we're talking about SDGs, how can we make a link between the development of required skills for the future and the role of the stakeholders to develop such skills, so we can guarantee sustainable development for all, and that would be led by all, including private sector and the public sector and individuals as well. Till we hear the answer from Dr. Faten, she needs to think about it. Let's move to the excellent speaker number 2, that will be talking about according to his long experience, Mr. Laurent Bropost. Who is the Director of Development and Research. Please introduce.
And kindly introduce yourself for 2 minutes maximum, and then you have 8 minutes as well. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As introduction, I would say that my most important credential in the upskilling process and in fixing the skills gap is a personal initiative I launched in the creation of a coding bootcamps for unemployed people in France and Luxembourg. And what I can say is that in 3 months, we're providing, as Dr. Faten said, self-confidence, coding competencies, social relationship. We can really make people back to the job market with a sustainable job. And beyond this job, beyond this activity, on the personal side, I'm advising governments, corporates, at an international level to really work on the strategic advice and on the workforce planning strategy. So I don't know if you have a presentation. Oops, no. No?
We need the presentation, please. Yeah. Right. Yes.
Okay. So I think I will focus mainly on the solution side. I think Dr. Faten already illustrated very well the problem. I just would like to say that I think that's key. We need to make leaders understand, and for everyone, that the most important strategic asset of any country is population skills. And that's really the way to wealth creation and sustainability and welfare. So this is really a fundamental statement which is not yet shared by, I would say, all government or all private leaders, and at least turned into action. So we know that there are many, many people and outside of a job market, outside of a required scope of competencies. I can tell you, we can see already some massive signals about the big, big storms coming ahead of us from a social perspective. So we need to address this problem in a very rapid way. And it's clear that it's a paradigm shift for many governments, corporates, and individuals. That's why we think today, from a solution perspective, that we need to have, at a national level, a multi-stakeholder skills investment priority plan. We are not talking about, I would say, €1,000 or dollars per person per year. We are talking about $10,000 per euro per person per year to make it happen, because the salary of a person has to be included into that. I will come back to that. So clearly, what we see today is that more and more, no skills, no job, no growth, no revenue, no social inclusion. And we can see now countries which are not able to present, to offer a skilled workforce to the economy. The companies leave the country. So we have, skills are becoming the most important asset to attract foreign investment. I think, as explained by Dr. Faten, clearly we need a T-shaped model, but we need more than that. We need a kind of a H-shaped model, which include all the competencies which were integrated. And the key point there is the H. Why? Because we need a human-centric approach, much more focused on the real human qualities. I'm going fast on that, but I would like to share some examples. For instance, Amazon just launched in August this year a massive upskilling plan for 100,000 people, investing $700 million into it. So meaning $7,000 per person. And we are talking about low-skilled people in warehouses, in logistics, in the supply chain of people. And what is the plan? If you look at the details of that, they are trying to make these people totally employable for the new digital economy. It's about data, it's about managing software, it's about managing robots, it's about coding. So how can we upskill people into the new economy to ensure a sustained job for that? So some companies like Amazon have already understood the problem. Some governments, I'm coming from Luxembourg, and we have developed a pilot project, a national skills bridge project, which is available for small-scale companies as well as big companies. And then we provide a full enabling environment, including technical assistance, workforce planning, and financial assistance for companies to accelerate their upskilling process. Then we are working with for instance, a new plan which has been designed is the EU 2030 skills strategy for the EU industry. And this is about really mobilizing all resources to make sure that the EU industry will have the right skills. For instance, the aircraft industry is looking for 50,000 people right now. Where Airbus is going to locate the next factory, they don't know. They don't know where are the next skills for Airbus company. So we developed a kind of a set of modules, 9 modules, to really accelerate and operationalize the development of the upskilling initiative in Europe. And to some extent, it's a kind of a Marshall Plan for skills, which is required. At PwC, we just launched also a new initiative. It's a $3 billion investment on our people, but that will work on the corporate workforce, that will work with government. It's an open call for working with governments to design this enabling environment. And it's also for disadvantaged communities to bring them back to the labor market in a sustained job. So what is the plan? I would like to focus a little bit on it. This is very important. I think what we are talking here, we are talking about a prime minister topic. We are not talking about just a labor minister topic or education minister topic. We are talking about a national priority topic. It's a prime minister topic which has to coordinate, like they did in Norway, for instance, more than 11 or 12 ministers. They have, as OECD recommends also, they have to come up with a national skills strategy. It's urgent. taking into account all the local assets, taking into account also migration, and to come up with, I would say, a new strategy for the education system with short-term, medium-term, and long-term outcomes, and also a new strategy for the vocational training system. But vocational training system is key to fix the short-term issues. And that's a very important point. These strategies have to be elaborated in collaboration with the public and private sectors to make sure that we can really address the local skills gap in line with the local economic value chains. And then, which needs to go through the green bubble, which is about a large-scale upskilling solution with high-quality training, which could be provided by different providers, linked to a job. We need to link this upskilling to a job. We cannot upskill people. We cannot invest in people if we don't have a job perspective. This is not possible. And this is not credible. So we have to think about the job perspective, we have to think about the job, the skills required by the job market, and adapt the curriculum, adapt the process to that. So there is a clear link between the Prime Minister and the job. And we have to, it's an end-to-end process, and this is what has to be operated in most of the countries. So what is upskilling? It's about providing a set of knowledge, qualifications and skills to enter into a new or a transformed function. That could be about data. That could be about critical thinking. What does it take? Motivation. People have to be motivated. So we need to frame this solution as a very positive and constructive framework. It's self-confidence. As Dr. Faten said, self-confidence is key. Most of the people today, they lost their self-confidence. We need to restore this self-confidence for people. A vision for the new function, high-quality training, and individual technical and financial support. And we need, as a government level, to orchestrate an ecosystem, upskilling ecosystem. There are different bubbles. On the top, you have a company. You have, on the right, you have the individual solution. And then in the middle, you have the operator. How to operate such an ecosystem. And back, as a tools, you have integrated technologies, you have education content, vocational training content, and you have a lot of communication to be well-structured to make a full alignment between the stakeholders. So this ecosystem is a strategic piece of the equation. And then we have defined, I would say, methodologies on 6 steps. First one is the scope, defining the workforce planning at a national or corporate level, assess the current competencies in place, find the best possible match between the new jobs, the new skills requirement, and the people, train the new competencies, the upskilling part, and then monitor and assess the return on investment. We can see today, based on very concrete experience, that $1 invested into upskilling can bring at least $2 back to the government or to the corporate, and in some cases, 5 rapidly. So this is a massive, there is a massive return on investment when the project is well structured. Here is an example of a Cisco Skills Academy. It's we take it as a kind of a benchmark for learning to provide a new learning experience with gaming, networking in different new projects. And this, when a person follows this course and is certified with this course, he can get a job immediately with even a salary increase. So we wrote a book on it. I think that's an important point to research on it, and we are very open for research on it. And we think that clearly for us, upskilling is a benefit for all, for a state, corporate, in university, and individual. And I think this could be the way also to build a new economic and social fabric. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Laurent. Well, thank you, Laurent. And you took us in a very nice journey talking about different things that definitely relate directly to the skills and skill development. Probably my question to you in the second round is looking into research and development as one of the glories that the 20th century has done a lot in the Industrial Revolution, and now we're talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution. moving from T to H, and I do agree with you on the Marshall Plan issue. Again, how would you identify the role of research and development today to help upscaling the current labor force that we have and the future jobs that we need? I'll keep that with you until we finish with the third and last presenters.
Let's move to a very important speaker as we are talking about skills. Skills is the biggest challenge to the youth across the world. And it's not only about those who are working in different markets, but also the newcomers to the work market. In the near future, Simon Banks is a partner and a co-founder at Sustainable Recruitment Solutions. It's a very big title, and we expect that Simon will be talking about his work.
Simon, please kindly introduce yourself to the audience, and I also will be strict with you as well, though I like your smile. So you have only 1 minute to present yourself and 9 minutes to give the presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invite and for being here. So I fundamentally am not an economist, unlike the rest of the colleagues here on the panel. I'm really here probably to provide a little bit more of an observation from the ground upwards as to all of the work that we do is helping various companies across the Middle East, specifically the GCC, with helping them to hire and attract new staff related to various aspects of sustainability. So you'll all be familiar with the various different sustainable development goals. We'll typically be working more with organizations around renewable energy, looking at energy efficiency, looking at environmental preservation and action from that side. So we'll focus upon a few different aspects today, and it will be more observations. I'll skip through a few of the slides, because they're probably going to be a little bit repetitive from that side. It's worth making the very clear and obvious economic context that change is happening. The skill gap that exists today is different to the skill gap that will exist in 5 years and 10 years and 20 years from now. And therefore, when we are talking about a different economy, we're talking about different skills that are required, different companies that will be successful in the years to come in the future. It's also worth very clearly acknowledging that within the Middle East, it's common across the world, but there are specific aspects which the Middle East needs to tackle with regards to upskilling of people and movement of local staff, GCC nationals, away from the dominance within the public sector and moving into the private sector. And it's making that an interesting and appetizing and appealing career path for people to follow as well. There's a number, I suppose, of government priorities and aspects which I suppose got highlighted to me the other month when I was actually in Qatar. And the governments in Qatar are very clearly and publicly talking about planning for a lower population than they have now. Population in Qatar is about 2.3 million, I think, at present. They're planning for a population in 2025, so not that far in the future, of 1.5 million. So significantly lower population. Now, a lot of that will be linked into the loss of construction jobs and people going back to their home countries after the construction boom is finished. But there is an easy trick where a lot of people fall into the trap of thinking that companies and organizations are growing year upon year and countries are growing year upon year. There's not that same trend across the world. So, you need to be cognizant of these different aspects. There's also the question for local governments in the region as to, are we talking about skills development for local staff or skills development for the whole population within the GCC from that side, and therefore upskilling of nationals from elsewhere in the world who may go back to their home countries and take those skills with them, and therefore is it worth investing within them as well. The other element is, I suppose, where a lot of what we do touches into social science, where we're talking about attractiveness of jobs. There's been a tendency in certain parts of the work that we do, and like I say, all of the work I do is linked to areas of sustainability. We're doing a lot of work at the moment in Saudi Arabia with a project with the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, which is looking at upscaling aquaculture, that's a fish farming, fundamentally within Saudi Arabia. There's a big argument for it from a cost efficiency perspective. There's a big opportunity there for local companies. There's a big opportunity for food security. Most of the jobs in the aquaculture industry in Saudi Arabia, but common to the Middle East, are done by people from the Asian subcontinent at present. Those jobs are not deemed attractive, or there's a definition we'll come on to a little bit later about decent work. It's not deemed decent work by many of the local Saudi nationals at present. And therefore, it's changing that perception as to what is a good job, whether it is just salary, whether it's job title, whether it's actually the role that people are playing, the impact you have upon an economy as well. But these are the questions that governments need to be looking at. So bringing this back to, I suppose, the aspects of sustainable development, you'll all be familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, and I think the key strength of them is the interconnectedness of the goals and how they can work together in partnership. There's probably three sort of key topics to touch upon: quality education, decent work and economic growth, and partnership for goals are the ones that are most clearly linked through to the skills development cycle as well. I've split this into two different slides, one for upskilling youth, because we're not knowing fundamentally who was going to be here in the audience today, and then the reskilling of the workforce as well. There is a very, very large, I suppose disproportionately large, issue of unemployment within the MENA region for youth. And I suppose I thought it might be useful to try and give some I suppose, practical advice from what companies are seeing and telling us as to how we can help people to actually go out and get those jobs as well. The first element probably is to say that if people are looking to get into jobs, they need to not be too precious. And fundamentally, the most common requirements that most organizations within the Middle East are asking for people who have experience. Catch-22, how do you get experience? But fundamentally, people need to accept that they're not going to get their dream job at Google, at Apple, or wherever it may be from day one. The best way to upskill themselves is to work. Whether that be in the ideal job or not, the best way for you to upskill is to work. People need to assume a very critical mentality when I suppose going through that application and I suppose job hunting process, and really I suppose looking at the value of what they can do for an organization, but also the value of the choices that they make within their career as well. There's a lot of people that I find who will come to me at times and say, hey, I've got an MBA, I've been doing this. So what? It's a very blunt statement, but if you cannot add sufficient value, then what's the point of paying $25,000, $30,000 to go off and do a fancy MBA from a top university in the US? Yes, it can add value to certain people, not to everybody. Your average fisherman does not need an MBA. We all know this, but at the same time, a lot of people have a tendency to either overinflate their egos and to become too proud, but really suppose they need to focus upon a very critical analysis as to what's going to add value and help them get to where they want in their career. The other sort of final point there, just to touch on, is everybody is living for longer. Everybody will be working longer now than previous generations. The aspect of reskilling is not just for the older, the mid-generation people, but actually people need to start their careers with the expectation that they're going to have to change the direction of their career 2, 3, 4 times through the next 30, 40 years of their career, or 50 years of their career from that side. And so accepting that you need to be having a continuous approach to learning is critical, and the sooner you get into that habit, the easier it is to continue. The private sector is where we do most of our work. 90% of jobs within emerging markets are normally within the private sector, typically within SMEs as well. It becomes at times incredibly easy for large organizations to grab all the headlines, but realistically, people know that there's a lot of value in investing in the skills in entrepreneurship. It's a case of actually governments providing the enabling environment that allows entrepreneurs to flourish and to move forward, rather than them feeling overwhelmed that there's too many issues and too many different noise that they can't tackle. There's a lot of organizations that will talk to us at times about all of the noise around big data, around AI, around numerous different technological challenges, and they feel a little bit lost. They don't know where to start. They feel like they should be doing something because everybody's doing something. But where do you start from that side? And so, a very critical mentality is needed from that perspective as well. That's where governments can normally come in and provide a very clear and cohesive communication strategy as to not just generically how AI is going to be input into the UEE in the next 10, 20 years, but actually in your industry, this is the opportunity from that side, and helping organizations to set up and to grow their local economies here rather than elsewhere in the world. There's also a few sort of moral and sort of societal questions in terms of most people will accept that the role of a private sector, or most private sector companies will focus upon what is in their best interest, typically profit. There's an evolving mindset that actually you need to be looking at more than just profit. You need to be looking at the wider sustainability footprint, the wider corporate responsibility for organizations. But fundamentally, there is a question as to if an organization finds it cheaper to reskill their workforce by firing their existing staff and hiring brand new people in, is there a moral responsibility that they're abdicating in that sense? I'm being told to hurry up. From a HR perspective, most people won't realize this, or they'll see it from a periphery, from the outside. There's a lot of money that's being thrown into HR at the moment, and whether it be chatbots on websites, whether it be automated tracking systems, there's a range of different companies offering facial recognition software. These are all emerging technologies, but a lot of these technologies come with inherent risk at the same time as well. But there's a lot of subjective data that's being claimed as objective data at the same time as well. We all know that the easy part to quantify is people's experience and what people know. It's much harder to quantify people's skills and what they may be able to do or they can do for you in the future from that side. There's companies which are starting to trial this now, and I suppose they're offering it within the marketplace. My one word of caution would be that there's a very interesting Harvard peer-reviewed study that came out a couple of months ago, which looked at assessing the effectiveness of different psychometric and different personality profiling software. These are all software which are looking at video recognition. If you are a company that uses one of these software, believes they're doing the right thing, and have made a couple of successful appointments from that, you're very inclined to trust that blindly. The results from this study were basically coming out and suggesting that actually most of the time, if you put the same candidate for the same job through 4 or 5 different software, 4 or 5 different findings will come out. So there is an element as to, yes, it is providing you some very clear and objective data, but is it trustworthy at the same time as well? The other element I put down there as a classic example is knowing which technology and which data to utilize at which point for which role. Everybody wants a pilot who knows how to fly a plane and isn't too worried about whether they're a cultural fit with the organization. If you're a hotel or somebody within the tourism industry, then fundamentally it's much easier to teach people the skills as long as somebody has a culture and a personality that allows them to communicate and to embrace with new people on that side. We'll skip over the rest because I know we are short of time. And I suppose the other final points were just to talk about the jobs of the future, the key trends that haven't been touched upon yet. We are moving into a gig economy, whether people realize it or not. Gig economy, in case you're not aware, is very much people are not employees of organizations, very much a decentralized workforce who can be working anywhere within the world. But also we need to be talking about people who have a motivation to work as well. It's not just a case of whether somebody can do the job, but whether somebody wants to do that job and to take that step forward as well. Leave it there.
Thank you very much, Simon. Well, it reminds me with I don't know if you attended the Social Network film, and that talks about the story of Facebook. And one of the statements that I always remind in my mind is that when they say that Harvard University prepares students not to search for a job, but to create their own jobs. And having said so with the presentation that you've just given to us, I just want you to think about a question related to what are the criteria that we can look at when it comes to finding the proper skills for sustainable jobs today and in the future. So what kind of skills do you expect at the level of those newcomers to the market for them to sustain a job in the future?
I would like to thank all the panelists. They were indeed quite enriching presentations, and their presentations might have made you think of questions. We have around 13 minutes. I would like to open the floor to questions from the audience. 7 minutes for your questions, and then 7 minutes to the panelists to respond to your questions. We start with the right, and then we move on to the front. Sultan Al-Hamzi from Saudi. I have a question that is repeated every time I attend a discussion about data, big data, and jobs of the future. Why is there such a big concern about the jobs of the future? Do you not think that the world has proven its capacity to adapt or to continuously develop? This is a question that I always think of when I attend such sessions. Thank you. Another question. So we'll take all the questions before I give the floor to the panelists to answer. Good afternoon. Can you please present yourself, Rana Al-Husseini? You mentioned that there are around 35 jobs that will disappear, 75 rather, and there are other new jobs that will be generated. However, could you possibly give us a list of jobs that you think might disappear and what new jobs might appear? Can you just clarify? Another question. Let me talk about Egypt and not all countries. In Egypt, we have 100 million, a population of 100 million. Let's say we have 1 million companies and the government sector. It's normal that they would employ, say, 10 or 20 million. But what about the rest of our population? How can we find jobs for them? Two questions from the left side of the room. Can you please raise your hand so we can get a mic to you?
تفضلي.
Since we're talking about skills, I have a specific
بدك
question.
تعرفي بنفسك أول شيء.
Sorry. أنا آية تميمي من الأردن. Since this is about skills, this question have been on my mind for a while. How do we make sure that the skills we have learned, even if they're deadbeat skills right now, we didn't waste time and effort for them? For example, if someone learned Java isn't needed anymore, but I spent my effort and time and money for example, a skill. How do I make sure my time isn't going for waste? And thank you.
Thank you. Great question.
My name is Hind Sabra. I'm from Jordan. I just want to
I'll give you another extra question because you are from Jordan, so the
All right. Thank you. All right. It's pretty much related maybe to your question, your last question to the last speaker. So basically, if we were going to talk about MENA region in specific, our unemployment rate is even much higher, and when it comes to youth, it's even much higher, maybe more than 50% in most of the developing countries. For this specific targeted area, the MENA region, how would you conclude the main new or emerging needed skills, and especially that we are even not developed yet? I don't think 2022 would be maybe our target. Maybe it's the world's target, but maybe not the MENA region. So just this link.
Noted.
Yeah.
Thank you. Last question here, because we have 1 extra minute. It will be the last question because I want to give them enough time to answer.
Selma Al-Alam from a newspaper. My question is about the literature disciplines. How do you see their future? It seems that most requirements for the future are related to AI and technology. So what about literature and art in the future? One last question.
Quickly, please.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm from France. So my question is related to the soft skills. Today we are talking about how to communicate and like the basic soft skills, but we don't talk about the street smart soft skill. How do we implement this in a corporate environment? Because these skills help eventually to cope with uncertainty and risk, but how do we translate this in a corporate world?
Thank you. So I'll give 2 minutes to each speaker. I just want to answer one question.
But before that, I would like to answer the question about the 35 or the 75 million jobs that will disappear and the 133 million jobs that will appear. There's a WEF report called or titled Future Jobs. You can download it and you'll have all the details about these jobs. So please refer to the report. I start again with Dr. Faten to start responding to the questions.
Okay, so my answer will try to incorporate most of the questions. So actually, there's no specific sector that will be affected more than others. There are certain type of jobs that are routine jobs. These are the ones that are mostly repetitive, and they are the ones prone to automation. The non-repetitive jobs or the non-routine jobs, these are the ones to stand against automation. And for these jobs, you would need to merge these three skills: the cognitive, the social, and the technological. As for the lady who said that she learned Java and now later on like it won't maybe be demanded. The thing is, that's the case for any specific skill related to a specific technology that you decide to learn. The key is to learn how to learn. So we have to train ourselves to have like competency and resilience. So you have to have an open-minded growth mindset, or let's say agility or adaptability. You have to learn the language of programming. So whether you're using Java or other software or other technology, you have to train yourself to be confident enough to sit down again and learn something new, because that would be the case from now until the rest of our lives, because technology is so fast and you have to be as fast. And concerning the MENA region, I do agree with you. The young population are the ones who are paying the price for all the economic crisis that you have been witnessing, all the social, political instability that you have been witnessing. So so I'm gonna tell you something. We have to learn the skills that will be needed in the fourth industrial revolution. Although we might still in the third, or maybe like artificial intelligence didn't reach like all the MENA region, but the skills that we have to learn are very crucial for being in the MENA region or being in OECD countries. We have to learn them, and I don't know if there's still something that I didn't answer. Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I confirm that the learn-to-learn skill is the most important strategic skill. Just to answer the first question about why not waiting the society, the economy to adapt, I can give you the figure for Europe. Right now in Europe, we have 16 million unemployed people. We have 5 million vacant jobs. The cost is 600 billion per year. Current cost for this year, 600 billion, 3.5% of EU GDP gone. And it will increase in the future. So we have no time to adapt. It's an urgent issue. Regarding also the question regarding the skills and the technologies, I think as Simon raised the problem. I think that clearly today we see, and it's a big opportunity, we see the emergence of a lot of new solutions, technological solutions using a lot of new AI models. Okay, we have to test and we have to adapt adapt these models to the real local markets, to the real local needs. And we have to carry out very in-depth, I would say, due diligence. We did it on 30 tools, for instance, on our side, and we were able just to select only 2 relevant tools which provided robust, replicable, explainable results. And at the end of that, these tools were able to match the skills requirement of a job with the skills provision of a person. And we are not talking about one skill. We are talking about a set of 20, 25 skills to make a job. So this is a combination of a set of skills which will make you relevant, employable, not just only one. And I think this is the time also for career orientation services in university, in job employment, to be equipped in the right way and rapidly with that, because then they can explore really the potential of anyone and provide them with new opportunities.
Thank you. Simon?
Okay, so without wishing to echo too much of the comments made by Laurent and by Faten as well, but one element I would add is critical thinking. The main element that I remember when I think back to my days at university was not what I learned, but I got taught to question everything religiously. Don't believe a single word. And I had various lecturers that I recollect now who would purposely start each lecture at times by throwing in at least 5 false facts in every single section to see who was going to pick out and who was going to question him upon the mistakes that he was making. Everybody needs to individually take responsibility for critical thinking and for looking at the choices that they're making in their career and asking, if I take a career path in this direction, what are the chances of those jobs becoming obsolete? Are these skills going to stand the test of time or not? So that's the generic answer to that part. What jobs are being created? Somebody asked. Lots. There's a multitude of different areas, and I can give you a few examples from areas that I specifically work with. Aquaculture, I think I mentioned earlier, for example, is one. There was historically very little fish farming in Saudi Arabia. I think there's something like 5 million Rial industry at the moment. They're looking to grow that to 60 million, if the numbers are correct in my memory, over the next 11 years now by 2030. So there will be a creation of a lot of new jobs. There's a friend of mine who runs a company basically running drones which will fly over solar parks within the Middle East and take photo imaging technology to see whether those solar cells are working effectively or not. That job did not exist, not even 5 years ago, from that perspective. So with each new emerging technology, there are new opportunities. I didn't talk about it in the presentation, but Equinor is the new name of what was Statoil out of Norway. Historically, they've both rebranded to be in line with a cleaner, greener future, but also fundamentally, they are using a lot of the historic expertise they have in deep water drilling for the benefit of the offshore wind industry as well. Wind industry hasn't really come to the Middle East yet, but the expectation is that it will in the years to come, with cost efficiencies coming down. So there are different areas, whether it's in hard engineering, whether it be in tourism, whether it be in technology, where new jobs are being created. The lady asked a question about Java and smart sort of street skills. The only element that I would probably say to give you a little bit of confidence on that side is a lot of organizations are utilizing technology to aid and to filter through the HR system and process. I've yet to see any organizations take sufficient confidence in any technology to really go ahead and to make decisions purely upon that basis. So normally they'll still be reliant upon the interface, the interviews that people do in person to make those final decisions.
Thank you, Simon. Well, I'll give another 1 minute to Dr. Faten. She insisted she wanted to do a conclusion remarks.
Yes, for the youth unemployment in the MENA, and to what extent, let's say, for instance, in Egypt, because we have, let's say, around 100 million, the population is 100 million, and how we can tackle youth unemployment and how we can move with the fourth industrial revolution. So the share of agriculture, the share of manufacturing employment across MENA region on average is 10%, and this sector has a lot of potential, and actually it can make use of the emerging technologies in the fourth industrial revolution to expand this sector and create a lot of job opportunities. Because mostly we export raw materials. If we make use if we make use of these emerging technologies to move up the value chain instead of only exporting raw materials and actually exporting end products, this will expand our manufacturing sector, employ the young generation, the working population that has been expanding by 40% for the past since 2000. So this can be one of the solutions to combine youth unemployment, the MENA, and the fourth industrial revolution. So,
شكرا دكتورة.
At the end, I would like to thank you for being here, and I would like to thank Mohammed bin Rashid Knowledge Foundation for such annual meetings and interactive meetings. And on your name, I would like to thank Mr. Simon and Dr. Faten and Mr. Laurent for their fruitful and valuable presentations. And I would like to ask you to thank the translators who did a good job. Thank you so much. Especially it has been difficult when I switch from Arabic into English, and thank you so much.